If you want to be able to achieve every single one of your goals, you have to use metacognition. Metacognition is a new term in psychology which basically means awareness and control of every single thing mental. No matter what you want to achieve, where you want to go, how you want to do it, whether it's in business, relationships, fitness, money, success, all of that stuff starts in your mind, and this is the point where you have to master. Your mind is what you have to master to achieve anything in life. And a lot of our mental processes are just automatic and they're really unnecessary. And metacognition is a term of being able to be the awareness behind all of those mental processes and understanding the mind at a deeper level in order to control it and direct it to a certain goal and to a certain outcome. So if there's anything you want to get to, you have to have some direction and you have to have some control over your mind to be able to get there, right? If you're always just wandering around, if you have no focus, you're never going to be able to achieve that goal. And so this is where metacognition comes into play, because this is a tactic and a concept to be able to control your mind to get everything that you want in life. And that's what I'm going to break down in this video today. Recently and on my fitness journey, I have become very and super interested in being able to control my mind. I used to be heavily addicted to pornography, drinking, weed, vaping, literally scrolling social media, literally every single thing that you could think of, I probably did. Drugs, literally every single thing. And through my fitness journey and through becoming more disciplined, I have started to learn how to control my mind. And then through research and stuff, I came across metacognition. And this is what I want to share with you guys today. Now, obviously, many of you guys have heard the term meta before, which basically means the most ideal, the best, the highest level. And it's basically the approach you want to take when it comes to this. How we want to do this is we want to be able to control our thinking and become the awareness behind it, right? So much of our thinking is unnecessary and it's insane. A lot of the stuff you probably think about is very impulsive, very weird, very dirty, very nasty, and it's because your mind is addicted to short-term pleasure. And that is how the world operates today. The modern world today is operating off of short-term pleasure. And so we have to break out of that. And how you break out of that is developing meta-awareness through watching and waiting for your mind, right? That is step number one, is that you have to develop this awareness, right? Awareness of your thoughts, awareness of your thinking, because that is how you are going to be able to disassociate from your thinking and get it to direct to a certain goal. So you have to do this. You have to develop meta-awareness by watching your mind, right? Instead of always being so entrapped in your thoughts, always thinking, always, really just caught in the stream, right? Your mind is basically a mental stream of stuff, right? Just stuff always going on in your mind, right? And a lot of you guys, you are so identified with it and you think what is going on in your mind is just who you are. When in reality, that is not who you are, but you are the awareness behind your mind. And this is what you have to start doing, is watching your mind and almost using it like a little game, okay? And the game is what is going to be my next thought? What am I going to think about next? And just watch your mind. Continue to watch your mind throughout your day. Your whole life should basically be a meditation of you being able to watch your mind, because once you are able to have sustained attention and sustained focus for long periods of time, that is when you get success, right? And so the first step is developing that awareness and developing the ability to have sustained attention. And a lot of the time, you guys, you want to focus, you want to be able to do your work, you want to be able to do X, Y, Z, but there's so many different distractions just pulling you in different directions, right? Your mind will just bring stuff up and then you'll go down the rabbit hole. I did this all the time, right? And even today, I'll still catch myself doing it. But once you start developing that awareness and once you start knowing it, then you can make the change, right? So the first step is to develop the awareness by watching your mind, seeing what thoughts come up, right? If you are sitting down and trying to work and your mind is always thinking and you're thinking about this and you're thinking about that girl, you're thinking about what that person said, right? And then you go down that rabbit hole, boom, your focus got snatched, right? And a lot of people's focus is snatched, not from what they are doing, but from what they are watching and from their own mind, right? And so you have to start to disassociate from your mind and start to use it instead of having it use you. That's what most people do on a daily basis, is their mind just comes and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs, and they're so identified with it and they never take that awareness back and learn to control your thinking, right? This is the first step. right? In order to do anything, you have to have sustained attention and sustained focus on a goal, on a task for a certain period of time, right? When I'm making this YouTube video, I get into flow state because I have sustained attention. And that is key to developing that meta awareness. And so if you really think about it, in the past 200, 300, 400, and 500 years, the greatest achievements in human history have truly happened. We're able to build skyscrapers. We're able to travel to faraway lands. We're able to fly to the moon. We're able to do all of these different things. And it's because we have been able to access meta awareness, right? For the first thousands of years of history, we were not able to do any of that. None of that. And then in the past couple hundred years, we accessed a new realm of consciousness, which allowed us to do all of these things. So the greatest achievement in human history have come from being able to direct and control your mind's thoughts, right? That is point number 2, is you have to be able to direct and control your mind's thoughts. That is where the greatest achievements in human history have come from, right? And so if you think about all of these things and how people were able to do them, they had a set goal. They didn't know how to fly a plane. Like nobody knew how to create a plane and fly it, right? But they had this vision in their head, and then they used their awareness and they used their thinking to make it come to life. And so that is what you must do, right? If you're trying to reach a goal, if you're trying to get somewhere, you've never been there before. You don't know how to get there. Maybe other people know and other people have done it, and so they can show you, but the greatest achievements of your life is going to come through being able to direct and control your thinking, okay? That is how it's going to happen, right? If you are always distracted, like I just mentioned, if you're not focused, you are never going to be able to direct your mind, control your thoughts to reach a set goal, right? This is how people were able to do stuff that has never been done before, right? Because they had a vision in their head, and then they directed their mind and they controlled it to be able to get to a certain point, right? And that really goes to show that anything in the world is possible through meta awareness, through the ability to control and direct your thinking. So the achievements of your life is going to happen through controlling and directing your thinking, right? So we first talked about watching your mind and becoming the awareness of your mind. Now you have to channel that awareness and start to direct it and control your thinking. Now you are using your mind through controlling your thinking, okay? Now, some ways you can do this is to get into flow state. That is one of the best ways to be able to control your mind and to control your thinking. When I make my YouTube videos, after about 30 minutes, after about an hour, I start to get into flow state and I'm able to speak without stopping, no interruptions, no pauses. And it's almost like the consciousness is flowing through me and I'm not thinking about it and it's just coming up very easily, right? That is the point you want to get to with whatever you are doing for your work. You want to be able to control your mind and direct your thoughts and then have consciousness flow through you, right? And the first step is to be in flow state, right? That is how you are able to control and direct your mind and your thinking to be able to get a certain outcome. And what flow state is basically just working without thinking, right? You are directed, you have your goal, and now it's easy. It's coming right up at you, okay? And so how you want to be able to do this is about an hour and a half or 60 to 90 minutes of deep work every single day, right? That is one of the best ways you can control your mind and focus and get to a certain outcome, right? Whatever it is you are trying to do, 60 to 90 minutes of deep work every single day. And when I mean deep work, I mean you set a time on your phone and you don't look at your phone for the next 60 to 90 minutes and you control and direct your thinking. If you don't think your mind is going to come up with bullshit thoughts, impulsivities, and different things, try it. Right? Try it right after this video to do 60 to 90 minutes of deep work on whatever it is. It could be making a YouTube video. It could be writing a book down. It could be, I don't know, writing your goals down. Whatever deep work you feel like you need to do right now, try it right after this video, right? Don't look on your phone. Don't have any distractions and just work for 60 to 90 minutes and you will see the type of thoughts that your mind comes up with. But the key thing here is to continue to work and to continue to go through those thoughts and direct and control your mind. When you are able to do this deep work, directing and controlling your mind and not getting pulled and distracted in different ways, you are able to have the ability to control your mind. And this is how you get to meta awareness. So 60 to 90 minutes of deep work every single day is going to be able to access that human consciousness and access that meta awareness that you need in order to reach your goal. So understand, and number 3 is understanding that there is, I kind of got caught up with the numbers here, but Understanding there is a better you possible, right? It's out there, but it's on the other side of your mind and of your thinking, right? Okay? So a lot of people, they have certain addictions, they have certain things, and all of those addictions stem from their human cognition, right? Understanding there's a better you out there, but you have to walk through the door. You have to walk through the door, and how you walk through that door is controlling your mind. Deep work, watching your mind. It all starts up here. It all starts up here, right? When I was going through the addictions of porn, junk food, video games, every single addiction, vaping, smoking weed, drinking, all of that stuff, it was because I felt like it was who I am. That's how I felt. I identified with those things. I was never disassociating and never watched my thinking and never controlled my thoughts, right? There's a certain time when those thoughts come up and when you're like, ooh, I could really use a joint or I could really use a vape, right? And so I would identify with it and I would just go along with it. And that was leading me down the wrong path, right? In reality, I could have heard that thought, felt that thought, and become the awareness behind that thought and let it go, right? But I just didn't understand that at the time. I was too young. So you have to understand there's a better you out there, right? And the better me in that situation would have heard that thought, understood that thought, and let it pass by instead of identifying with it and going along with it. So there's a better you out there. You have to walk through the door, right? And a lot of people's problems, they start with their mind. They have no ability to control their mind, and they let their dopamine, they let their impulsivity, and they let that default mode just run all the time. And so they are never able to reach their goals, right? A lot of the time when I'm not in my deep work mode, when I'm not at the gym, when I'm not focused, when I'm not making a video, a lot of the time I just notice my brain is just thinking about dumb shit, just unnecessary stuff, like thinking about a girl, or thinking about a situation, or thinking about something 3 years ago, thinking about what I should have said then, right? It's just a bunch of unnecessary bullshit, right? And so you have to learn to control your mind in order to walk through the door, right? You have to walk through the door. And walking through the door is accessing that higher meta awareness of consciousness, which is going to allow you to reach your goals through that 90 minutes of deep work, right? So you have to walk through the door. It's a choice at the end of the day. You have the knowledge now, right? You know when certain thoughts come up, you can choose yes or no. You know when certain things come up, you can choose to keep working or to go into that impulsivity and go into that distraction, right? From now on, you have to start to become the awareness behind your thinking and learn how to control and direct your mind through doing deep work, right? You know there's a better version of you out there. Everybody has experienced that version of you out there before. The better version, the best version of you, the version that is not distracted, the version that isn't thinking about girls, the version that wants to get to its goals, the version of you that stops at nothing to get a certain place and is doing that deep work, is focused, isn't distracted, right? When impulsivities and things come up in your mind, you just push it off to the side, right? And you might have been like under some timeline pressure. There might have been a project due. There might have been something you had to do the next day. Maybe you owed some money, and so there was, you know, your survival was on the line. Whatever the case may be, there's certain times when you access that higher version of you, but it's rare. And so we want to be able to access all of the time. And so how you do that is walking through the door. Walking through the door of watching your mind. Walking through the door of controlling your thoughts. Walking through the door of doing your deep work and not getting distracted. That is how you reach that higher level of meta awareness. That is how everything amazing was done in human consciousness, right? They got into that flow state. They got into that mode where, okay, they weren't getting any distracting thoughts. They weren't getting any impulsive thoughts, right? And they were just getting everything that was going towards their goals, right? After they got that 30 minutes of flow state in there and they were directed and they were controlled, they had their thinking controlled and directed towards a goal, everything is just coming to you now, right? That is the state that you want to be in when you are working, when you are trying to get to your goals. And how you get there is through watching your mind and controlling and directing your thoughts and understanding there's a better version of you out there and you've accessed it before. Now you just have to get back to it. So we really broke down the main points of metacognition and how to be able to access that higher level of awareness. The meta awareness that every single person needs to be able to get to in order to direct and control their mind to achieving any single goal that they want to achieve. Now the next thing is you have to begin to understand how the world around you operates, right? And so many people, they go through life and they have no idea how the world works, how the universe works, how things around them work, right? That is something that I am always trying to learn more about, is how the world works, how the universe works. How can I fit into here? How can I get success while I'm on this earth? How can I do certain things when I'm on this earth? How does the universe work and how I can reflect that? And a lot of people just have no idea. They've never thought about it, and they just go through life like just swinging around, you know? And so you have to be able to have the awareness and look around you. And the biggest thing to notice today is that the modern world is pleasure seeking, right? That is all the modern world is. Think about all the things around you, right? All of the things around you: alcohol, weed, vaping, drugs, parties, clubs, all of these stuff is pleasure seeking activity. And the thing about pleasure seeking activity is short-term pleasure leads to long-term unhappiness. So the modern world is pleasure seeking, right? All of the things around you, strip clubs, girls, all of these things are just pleasure seeking at the end of the day, and they want to be able to get your short-term pleasure so you have long-term pain. That is what the short-term pleasure is going to give you, right? Think about it. Whenever you go out to drink, you go out to drink with your boys, you guys are getting faded, you're getting fucked up, you got a couple drinks, right? Maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. I've been there, trust me. And then the next day, you're screwed, right? You're hungover, you don't want to do anything, you have no drive, you have no motivation, you have no desire to work on your goals, and it's because you chose short-term pleasure, which equals long-term unhappiness, right? This is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid short-term pleasure and long-term unhappiness, right? That is what so much of the world is today. Everything around you is today. That's just how it is today. Think about scrolling on social media. Think about the bars. Think about weed. Think about vaping. Think about all of these things. Girls, porn, Instagram girls. It's all short-term pleasure-seeking activities that leads to long-term unhappiness, right? So whenever you want to seek out the things of the modern world, understand that they are short-term pleasure and it's going to lead to long-term unhappiness. And the more you seek out those things, the harder it's going to be able to control your mind and direct your thinking into your goals, into what you want to accomplish, okay? So that is why it's so important to understand how the world works around you. You have to begin to see how the world works. Look at it on an every single day basis. The foods people are eating, the things they talk about, right? The entertainment, the clubs, the girls, the parties, the drugs, the weed, the vaping. All of this stuff is made to destroy you. It's made to keep you in the same low frequency state, right? Short-term pleasure leads to long-term unhappiness. Always remember that. Always, right? So if you want long-term happiness, if you want to be able to have purpose and find pleasure long-term, right? Not short-term. If you want to have an overall purposeful and a great life, you have to choose short-term, not unhappiness, but short-term ability to control your thinking, to control your thoughts, right? A lot of the time people are in a negative state and they have no idea why. Like, why are you actually so depressed? Why are you actually so angry? There's no real reason why, right? People just identify with this thinking and they can never get out of it because they're so identified with it and it's a part of who they are, right? That's off topic, but short-term pleasure leads to long-term unhappiness. And you see it everywhere around you in the modern world. Short-term pleasure every single where you go, every single where you step. And so it's so important, it's so vital to start to notice this. See how the world works. See how people have long-term unhappiness because of their short-term pleasure, right? A lot of the older people who are walking around, they're unhappy, they're in a bad mood. It's because they have just identified with their negative thinking for one, but also because earlier in life, they chose pleasure, right? That is what they chose, and now it's leading to long-term unhappiness. Think about all the older people that you see on a day-to-day basis. I rarely meet an older person who is just genuinely happy. Rarely. One of my neighbors, I think, is genuinely happy, and she's an older woman, but most people, older people I meet, they just look upset. They look mad all of the time. And it's like, why are you so upset? Why are you so angry? Right? For no reason. And so it's because they chose short-term pleasure, and then they also have no ability to control their thinking and their mental state, right? You can change your thinking and your mental state in an instant through just smiling, right? If I start to smile, I'll be in a better mood. right? If I start to disidentify with that negative thinking or that situation that didn't go my way, whatever the case may be, and I forget about it and I remember to control and direct my thoughts and to think positively, boom, just like that, I'm out of that mental state, right? But so many people, they chose short-term pleasure, and then additionally, they chose the negative state, right? It's a choice. You can switch your negative state. You can switch it like that, just smiling, right? Okay, so number 4 is start to understand how the world works around you and how everything is pleasure seeking and how you must sacrifice that short-term pleasure for long-term happiness. So for my final point, I want to be able to wrap this all up, tie it in a bow, and send you home with a gift to be able to control your mind and to control your thinking. And that is to not trust your thoughts and not trust your feelings, right? Because they are incorrect. Not all of the time, but most of the time your thoughts and your feelings are going to lead you astray. So you should not control them automatically, right? Don't trust your thoughts and feelings automatically, right? A lot of the time you'll have a state where you're like, ooh, I feel tired. Ooh, I feel lazy. Ooh, I don't feel like doing that. Ooh, I'm thinking about this thing. Ooh, I'm thinking about that thing. Don't trust it. Don't trust that automatically. Don't trust your feelings and thoughts automatically. Okay? That is such an important point for you guys, because a lot of people, they're just like, oh, I feel this way, so I'm going to do that. Oh, I think about this, so I'm going to do that. Oh, I have a certain feeling, so I'm going to do that. Think about it like this. If you are doing that 60 to 90 minutes of deep work, that is going to get you to your goals. That's directed, that's controlled, that's focused attention, that's that meta awareness that we want to get to. That's the flow state. That's the point where we want to get to, right? And you have a thought, you have a feeling, you have a thought that you want to check your phone. You feel like you want to check your phone. You feel like you want to get distracted. You feel like you want to look up something on the internet, right? And then you trust that, boom, you just broke your flow state. Boom, you just broke out of that meta awareness state, and now you have to go climb back into it, and it takes 30 minutes, it takes a little while, right? Once you break out of that mental state and that flow state, it is extremely, extremely hard to get back into it, right? And so that is why you cannot trust your thoughts and your feelings automatically, right? If I trusted my impulse to look at some girl on Instagram while I was working, if I trusted some impulse to check a text while I was working, if I trusted some impulse to answer a call while I was working, right? Whatever the case may be, that thing right there is going to break me out of my flow state, out of that mental awareness, right? And there's so many other things that you can think about that are destructive to you, right? You could have negative thoughts that you trust. You could have positive thoughts that are, loosey-goosey and not really going to do anything for you that you trust, right? You're like, maybe your life is in the shit and you're like, oh, everything is great, right? Maybe that'll help a little bit, but you need to get your shit together, right? And so maybe there are other feelings that you have. You feel like you want to masturbate, or you feel like you want to watch porn. You feel like you want to drink. You feel like you want to smoke. You feel like being lazy. You feel like not doing all those things. And then you trust it, and then you go along with it automatically without ever watching your mind, without ever controlling your thinking. That is where people get messed up, and that is where they fall into short-term pleasure, right? This is how I'm landing the plane, okay? I'm landing the plane by letting you know you cannot trust your feelings, you cannot trust your thoughts automatically, and you have to start to direct your thoughts and direct your feelings in a certain direction towards your goals. Whatever it is you want to accomplish, right? Whatever it is your goal is at the end of the day, whether it's to build a great physique, whether it's to make a bunch of money, whether it's to be an entrepreneur, whether it's to do X, Y, or Z, right? Whatever it is, you have to learn to control and direct your mind and direct your thinking towards that goal, right? And there's going to be times when feelings, thoughts, emotions, and things arise that are not in line with the goal. And you can't trust them. You cannot trust them automatically. You have to learn to control your thoughts, to control your feelings, and to control your emotions. And how you do that is by disidentifying from them and not trusting them automatically, right?